Every once in a while in the tech world, a rivalry comes along that's not just about features or market share. It's a fight over a huge, fundamental idea, and it ends up shaping an entire industry. Today, we're diving into one of those stories, the battle to define the future of data, a showdown between two absolute giants, Neo4j and TigerGraph. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the 2010s. The digital world is absolutely exploding with data, but the way we were storing it felt, well, kind of old-fashioned. Everything was stuck in these rigid tables of rows and columns, but a new idea started taking hold. What if the real treasure wasn't the individual data points, but the connections between them? This, right here, was the dawn of the graph database. And this led to the one single, multi-billion-dollar question that would kickstart this whole rivalry. If relationships are now the most important thing, what's the absolute best way to build a database, to store them, to query them, to understand them? And believe me, the answer was anything but simple. So to really wrap our heads around this, we gotta understand why this whole shift was so critical. The old way of doing things, those neat, tidy spreadsheets, they just couldn't handle the messy, chaotic, interconnected reality of the modern world. And that's where the graph database comes in. I want you to think of it less like a spreadsheet and more like a spider web. It is built from the ground up to map out these crazy complex networks, your social circles, how money flows between banks, or the entire supply chain for a product. It was a totally revolutionary way to look at data. So on one side of this new frontier, you had the original pioneer, Neo4j. And their whole approach was different. See, they weren't just trying to sell a product. They were trying to build a movement, a real grassroots effort with a global community at its heart. Man, what a journey it was. These guys were early. They launched way back in the mid-2000s, basically creating the entire category from scratch. Then they gave developers a brand new intuitive way to talk to graphs called the Cypher query language. And they spent years, and I mean years, nurturing this open source community that became their single greatest strength. And this is the part you really have to get. Neo4j totally won over the people who were actually in the trenches building the software. Developers just fell in love with its flexibility and this incredibly supportive community that sprung up all around it. Their whole DNA was built on these 4 pillars. It was all about being open, making it easy for developers to get started, putting the community first, and building a tool that was flexible enough to solve almost any problem you could throw at it. That was their identity. But of course, every great movement gets a challenger. And in this story, the challenger showed up looking like a pure, high-performance engine engineered for one thing and one thing only: raw corporate horsepower. So TigerGraph gets to the party a little later, and they come in with a completely different game plan. They looked at the market and saw that the biggest companies, we're talking banks, telecom giants, massive corporations, they had problems on a totally different scale. They didn't just need something flexible, they needed something with mind-blowing speed. And if you look at their philosophy, it's almost a perfect mirror image of Neo4j's. TigerGraph was laser-focused on what a Fortune 500 company would want: crazy scalability, a relentless obsession with performance benchmarks, and the power to do super deep analytics and just enormous datasets. And you know what? It absolutely worked. While all the developers were flocking to Neo4j, these huge corporations with incredibly demanding mission-critical needs were drawn to TigerGraph's simple promise of pure, unadulterated power. And just like that, the stage was set for a classic showdown. But this wasn't just about who had the better features. This was a fundamental clash of visions, a battle between community and horsepower. This right here captures that philosophical divide perfectly. On one side, you've got the world of Neo4j, which is all about the developer community, flexibility, and open standards. And on the other side, you've got TigerGraph's world, built for pure enterprise horsepower, performance, and massive scale. I mean, 2 completely different paths to try and conquer the exact same frontier. And that contrast just boiled the entire market's decision down to one simple but really profound question. What do you value more? The grassroots, flexible community, or the top-down, high-performance engine? Okay, but here's where the story takes a really cool turn. Because in the end, it wasn't really about who won or lost. The true impact of this rivalry was how their constant competition forced everyone to get better. And in the process, they basically forged an entire industry. Think about it. Because these two were fighting so hard, incredible new technologies suddenly became possible. Their race for performance made things like real-time fraud detection a reality. Neo4j's focus on developers powered the recommendation engines you and I use every single day. And together, they laid the groundwork for huge knowledge graphs and pushed this technology into mainstream IT. So when you look back, you see their legacies are totally intertwined. Neo4j basically defined the entire graph database category, making it accessible to everyone. But then TigerGraph came along and pushed the absolute limits of what that category could do, proving its worth in the toughest industries. It's like Neo4j built the racetrack, and TigerGraph showed up with a Formula One car and forced everybody to get faster. And that's really the big takeaway here. This fierce competition was the rocket fuel that took graph databases from being this niche academic idea to an indispensable mainstream tool that modern businesses just can't live without. Without that rivalry, progress would have been so much slower. So in the end, this battle between community and horsepower, it was never just about databases. One company built a movement, the other built an engine. But by fighting so hard to prove that their vision was the right one, they both ended up proving something way, way bigger. That in our connected world, the most powerful data isn't the points themselves, it's the relationships between them.